you're writing a requirement for a particular game, right? So you have to put it down. So the start of a ladder, the player would be sent to the end of ladders position. Yeah. Anything else you guys can think of? We have to also think about exposing some APIs. So let's think some more in that. So at any point in game, what would be the status of the game? Can anyone throw some light on that? Or what would be the simplest status of the game at any point? It would be like
Position of each player.
correct. Yeah. So position of each player should be exposed via an API of the game. Okay, so as soon as I write this particular line that it should be exposed via an API of the game, then whichever this API would be, I am sure that it has to be exposed from game class. Okay, so that's why requirements are important, and how you write those requirements are also important. Half of the class diagram you can deduce from, I mean 90% of your class diagram would come out of these requirements. Okay, one more status would be uh, status of game, like if it has in progress or finished, should be exposed by API of the game, right? Anything else?
Status of the player left the game or in the game.
Correct. So status of individual players in game should be exposed by API of what?
Of player.
Player, correct. Okay. Yeah, any, it could be game also. Okay, yeah, we'll see which place seems to be better when we go into actual code. Okay. Any other requirements? I think these are enough for our start, right? Anything else comes to mind? No. What could be our assumptions? Assumptions are simple. Positions of snakes and ladders are static, so we'll just take a static position. What else? Yeah, order of players for dice moves would be what? Random. Let's take it random. Okay. Oh no, it cannot be random. Sorry, it cannot be random because once the order is decided, it cannot be changed until the game has ended, right? So would be static then. Okay. Yeah. So we'll move forward to our class diagram. Okay. So for class diagram, sorry, we'll move forward to our use case diagram. Okay. So for use case diagram, as I had said earlier, we first need to,
Atul, I have one question.
yeah.
Yeah, for the last point you wrote, like the players will be like in a queue kind of format.
Yes, they will be in a queue.
Okay.
Atul, and so let's say user, so we have multiple users joining in.
Right.
So initially they will obviously start at the start of the board, right?
Correct.
So how do we schedule the users, like first come first served, or how is it actually?
Yeah. So the question has 2 points. First is, are we talking about players joining in between the game, and they would be starting from zero, and then how to decide their order? We'll leave that part for
Okay.
later. We'll just take the simplest case. That is, n players are present at start of the game, and we have to decide on their order, right? So to
Okay.
decide on the order, we'll have to deploy some kind of static mechanism. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it can be random also. We'll come to that. Even I'm not sure at this point of time what should be
Sure.
random. Yeah, but
Okay,
we
sure.
forgot one important point. The players have to be identified through some ID, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Player shall be identified by ID. Okay, in my case, I was told that players are able to join from web app, they are able to join from phones. So in my case, what I decided was it should be device ID. Okay.
And also, they should be linked to a particular game ID, right? There might be multiple games going on.
Yes. So you have two options again now. Either you can have a multiple game kind of design, or you
Okay.
can assume that at a time only one game is there, and make a comment that it can be scalable to multiple games. Okay. So for now,
Okay.
what I'll do, I'll just make an assumption that at a time only one game is in
Progress.
progress here.
Okay.
What if we want to have n games in progress?
Okay.
Right? So, first thing which comes to mind, if you want to have n games in progress, there has to be some kind of wrapper class above our own game class. Okay, that would be like a decider how many games are in progress, what is the status of those individual games and all, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Where I was, player shall be able to move forward. The die should be in range. Yeah, I need to take one more requirement. We need to do something about the board, right? There would be a board. Board should be configured with positions of snakes and ladders. Should be pre-configured. Okay. So yeah, now moving back to our this thing. Yeah. So first step is to move forward to our use cases. So how many kind of actors do we see in the system? Okay. One is obviously the player. Any other actor do you see? Yeah, there will be two actors. Primary actor would be our player. Okay, and there will be a secondary actor, which is the system itself. Why? Because primary actor will throw the dice and he will generate one random number between 1 to 6 and he will make some moves, right? What if he lands on a snake? If he lands on a snake, then the board, the snake and ladder board, will decide where that next move of that player should go. So that means the system has made a decision. So that's why system is a secondary actor. So as a convention, we keep secondary actors towards the right side and primary actors towards the left side. So there are only two actors in the system. That's how you identify. Anyone else sees any other actor? So it's a very fairly simple design, right? So if it's a very simple design and if you're not sure that you're not able to identify all the actors, just cross question: Can snakes be an actor, or can ladder be an actor? They cannot, because they cannot take an action on the board. They are anyways they are their positions are pre-configured. So obviously they cannot be an actor, and anything else we don't see as an actor in the system. So that's how you can conclude. That is one way to conclude that only two kinds of actors are there in the system. Most of the time, system would be one of your secondary actors. I think it's always, in my opinion, as much of design I have seen. Okay. Yeah. So moving ahead from actors, what could be our use cases? So what are our verbs here? What are our actions? So there is one action, player shall be able to move forward, right? So let us put one use case, move player, right? What is the next? Dice move should be in range 1 to 6, right? So can this be, yeah, this could also be one use case. Let's call it dice move. Okay. Yeah, it's better if we try to come up with meaningful names in our use case itself. Okay, that would be saving our time. Plus, it would show the interviewer that you are considerate about how you name your APIs. Okay. Yeah, what would be the next this thing? If a player reaches start of snake position, the player would be sent to end of snake's position, and associated use case for ladder. right? So what would be that verb? It could be,
It's again move player only, right?
yeah, but now there is one more thing.
Yeah,
If
for
you apply single responsibility, I mean, if you deploy single API for snake position as well and ladder position as well, and your normal position as well, then you are violating single responsibility. So
yeah.
that's why I would suggest you just for now you just make it granular, something like this. Okay. Now, as you pointed out, right, your interviewer can also point out that why are you not reusing move player for snake and ladder? So same argument you have to give to your interviewer. There is one more argument also. If you have dedicated APIs, right, unit testing becomes really very easy. All you need to do is test this API singularly. Okay.
Okay.
So that is also one thing you should put forward. Yeah, position of each player should be exposed by an API of the game. Correct. So now we have APIs. Yeah. Yeah, so we want to expose the position of each player. Okay, so I can name an API like this: get position of player, right? Yeah, status of the game should be exposed by an API. So we have to have one more API for status of the game. Get game status. Yeah. Status of individual player on in the game should be exposed by API of the player. So status of individual players in the game, right? Get player status. That is one more API we have. Player shall be identified by device ID. So we have to write one API to identify a player. So get player what ID?
by ID.
Let's do it by ID. Right. Board should be pre-configured with positions of snake and ladder. So we have to have an API called configure board. So I'm purposefully using camel case convention because my tech stack is more on Java side. I think this is a pretty much standard convention. So whenever you write APIs, right, you make sure you follow some kind of convention, whichever language you are. Don't just randomly write API names because it will show that you are hands-on with coding. Okay. Yeah. Can we have any APIs from assumptions positions of snakes should be static so that we can configure in configure board? If you want to have, you can put one API as configure. Let us put it snakes on board, right? Let's put it configure ladders on board. Okay, so we got two from our assumptions. Order of players for dice move should be static. So would there be any API for this? Okay, let me put one API. We'll come to it that it do we need it or not. So it would be configure player order. Okay. At a time only one game is in progress, so nothing, no API comes from this part. Okay. So this has given me bulk of APIs, which would be possible. Okay. So now what I need to do is associate it that who would be interacting with player and which will be interacting with the system, right? So move player, obviously this guy will do it, correct? The association will be, yeah, the association will be one to this thing. Player can move, can trigger move player, correct? Player can also trigger dice move, right? This would be the association. Move player for snake and move player for ladder. Do you think player will trigger it? No, right? Okay.
I have one question. Like,
Yeah.
for move player, player would be moving like from position A to position B, right?
Yeah,
So
correct.
if like we the move player move is, should be through system, right? Instead of like to user.
That is
User
correct.
can like have a dice move,
Yes,
and the
correct.
system will move the player, right?
Correct, correct. That is correct. So let us put it over here, right? And this guy would be, yeah, here. Now it makes sense. He was actually correct. Player can, the max he can do is he can make a dice move. Everything else will be done by system. Okay. So in a way, he answered that no association is now possible from player to any of these APIs. Okay. So that is a very good point. Your half of headache is gone. One actor is gone now. Only the only thing he can do is make a dice move. Okay. So what all things are left? Plenty of things are left, right? They will be done by system. Okay. So let us come over here. He has to configure the board. Okay. So system will configure the board. Correct. System has to expose game status. Okay. We are left with exposing APIs. Right. Okay. Yeah, let me put it here. You need to show these arrows properly because they are bidirectional, they are unidirectional. So if you make it bidirectional, you are saying that configure board can do something to system. That is not possible. So that's why. Yeah. Oh, wrong arrow. Correct. So system can do a game status. System can also do this thing, uh, player status. Player has to implement player status. So we got one API which player will be implementing, right? Get player by ID. Okay, this is also by player. Oh, let me put it like this, right? Configure snakes on board, configure snakes on this will come, configure player order. So this will be done by system, right? Let me put it like this, correct? We are done with most of them, right? Get position of player. Yeah, this will be one more getter API which we have to expose it to outside world. So this will be done by system, correct? Now, what all we are left with? We are left with configure snakes on board and configure ladders on board. Okay. So if you remember, we had our extrinsic and intrinsic use cases, right? Yeah. If you remember, we had our extrinsic and intrinsic use cases, exclusive and inclusive use cases. So what were exclusive use cases? They were those use cases which only one component or only one use case would be using. No other use case can share that. For example, in this case, configure snakes on board. Do you think any other use case, say move player, get position player, can these guys use this? It doesn't make sense, right? So this is exclusive use case. And how do we show exclusive use case? Can anyone tell me? Okay, let me, you need to draw it like this. Actually, let me pull it out, otherwise it won't see. Let us make this guy a little bigger. Huh, like this. Yeah. So how do you draw an exclusive use case? You just need to write extends. And this arrow should be dotted. That's it. Same thing with configure ladders on board. The idea here is configure board will internally trigger these two APIs. So they are exclusive to configure board. Okay. Actually, we need to put the arrow also. Yeah. Oh, reverse. Ah, that's fine. Okay. What else we are left with? We are left with move player for ladder, correct? And move snake for ladder, right? So again, do you think these two APIs would be triggered by anyone else other than move player? No, right? These are internal to move player. So again, this would be an extend relationship. Okay. Anything else we are left with? No, right?
Atul, one question. For the get game status and get player status,
Yeah,
like the get player status is done by the player,
correct.
but can he also have the get game status also? Like this, both the system and the player can have.
Okay. You can give get game status from player. Okay. But we have to think from design perspective. Uh, does it make sense to have each player know about the game status? I mean, you can give it, there is no issue in that. But what would you have to do in order to give that? Your player will have to have dependency of system. That means I have to inject the system object inside my player. Okay. Why would I do that? Player will become a fatter object, right? That is the only way to do, correct? Or you make some singleton status kind of a class, and that class will be aware about everything else. Something like that you can do. So player and system can both talk to that singleton class and figure out what to do. So yeah, to answer your question, you can do that. It would depend. Do you want to have that kind of dependency injection in your system or not? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So do you see something over here? Dice move. Once the dice is rolled, what next has to be done? That means this particular use case has to have a inclusive relationship with someone with move player. How do you show an inclusive relationship? You just do includes. Okay, because once the dice has been rolled, the next step is to move the player on the board. Actually, let's move it. Yeah. Similarly, this is just one use case, but you can figure out right now, right? What would be the game status or what would be the position of player on the board? Does it have a dependency on anything else? Yeah, it has dependency on system on the current board position and all. So I guess we will move forward with all of this. Anyone else sees any extend or includes relationship? Okay, fine. Yeah, so we will move forward. And I want to take one more use case here. We want to have an API, expose an API, which will let the caller know which player has thrown max number of sixes and has been bitten least by snakes at any point in time. Okay, so we'll try to implement this API. Okay, while implementing this API, as you might have guessed, we need to maintain the order of players along with their sixes and number of times they have been bitten by snakes. Okay, and then we have to maintain it in such a way that that API would just give us that particular player ID. Okay, that means we have to implement something as a priority queue. Okay, so this was the search functionality which I was talking about. This priority queue will implement a comparator which would take the player as an object, and during the comparison we will figure out if the player has thrown sixes or not. Okay, does this make sense? This is for searching.
Yeah, this is a good uh, kind of requirement. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Atul, could you please explain this again? Like, why we added this?
Yeah, we added because we wanted to have a search kind of functionality. Okay. So what if you
Hmm.
trigger this API, it would go and internally search which is the player who has thrown the maximum number of sixes, but has been bitten the least by snake at that point of time. Okay. So you can guess, right? If we search at that particular moment when you have triggered the API, it will be cumbersome. So why not maintain a priority queue which will automatically rebalance itself whenever a new dice has been thrown.
No, I got that. Means why we are using Pratica, I got that idea. But I was thinking why we added this as a requirement.
Yes, correct. Because somebody in beginning he wanted to implement a search kind of use case also within the design.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, got it.
Yeah. So we will go towards coding now. Let me put it. What did I close? Array. Yeah. Okay. Coming to the code part. First is you have to make a package. Usually packages start with this. So com dot explore dot snakes and ladders. So I'll encourage you to follow common coding conventions, all smalls in caps, right? Within this package, it would be best if you can have sub packages. For example, straight away, which I can see in our class diagram is, oh wait, we skipped the class diagram, man. Wait. We need to make class diagram also. Where is this here? Correct. So what all would be our classes from our diagram? Obviously, players is a class. So let me name this player as a class. Correct. Okay, how am I figuring out what all are the classes? I'm just looking for nouns, okay? Because what are classes or objects? They are real life representation of things. That means what is the real life representation of player? It's player, right? Will there be a real life representation of forward? No, it's just a move, correct? That's how. So player is a noun, dice is a noun, correct? So let me put one more class, dice, right? Yeah, snakes and ladders, they are nouns. So let me put two classes. Yeah, while writing classes, you just go for nouns, nothing else. What did I do? Need to cancel. What else can be there? Board is a class. Where is the board? Yeah, board is the class. I think game is also there somewhere. Game is a class. So let us put two more classes, game and board. It's an attribute. Game. Let's put board, right? What else we can see? Status is not a noun, so it won't be a class. What else? Does anyone see anything else?
What about having a user class which will, um, based on the type of user, say player or a system?
Yeah. So to answer that question, system and player, they can extend a common class when they have has a kind
Something.
of relationship, right? So suppose I make a common class, something like this. Okay.
Okay.
Where is my game? Here is my game, right? So let me make this class something as a common. So it's basically we are trying to figure out if we can derive these two classes out of a common class, correct?
Yeah.
So what would be a game? Can a game be say common, and can a player be also common? What attributes would a game have? It would have the boards, right? It would have the number of players inside it, correct?
Yeah.
That would be the least attributes which a game can have. What would be the attributes of player? He would just have his device ID, correct? And what else?
Associated with a particular game, probably.
Yeah.
Player might be associated with a game.
Yes. So association can be there, but they cannot derive out of any common class.
Okay.
Okay. If you would have some kind of admin of the game, right? Then we could have said that, this is a player. I mean, let me put it right like this. If would have some kind of admin, we don't have it right now, but if
Okay.
there would have been an admin, he would have an ID, right? So ID we would have put in common. Both player and admin could have extended from common. Both would have ID. Admin would just have some special attribute, which would say that this guy is an admin. That's it.
Okay. Okay. So what I was thinking was, so let's say we start a game, and maybe we just have one person associated with a particular game at a point, and nobody joined. So let's say, does a player play with the system as a secondary player?
You mean against this thing,
System.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we haven't taken it in our requirement, but since you brought it up, it's a very good point to put it under assumption. Don't put it under requirements on the fly. Okay,
Okay.
in my
Yeah.
last lecture also I said, if you come across some of those use cases, right, never put it on a requirement under fly, because if you put
Okay.
something in this thing, it means you are going to do something about that. Okay,
Okay. We
since
are
you brought it up,
assuming that minimum of two players are there.
yes.
Okay.
And of course, since you were able to think this deep, so you should take this into note. What if player has to play against system?
Okay.
Okay, if you have time, then you should
Sure.
come back to this thing, yeah,
Okay.
because
Okay.
this will give you some kind of some magic to be done inside the class diagram. So that would be really impressive from point of view of an interviewer. Okay,
Okay.
yeah. So moving forward, so we'll just remove this
I
common
have
and
one question, like,
yeah.
why we are taking snakes and ladders as a class instead of having them as a variable?
Yes, correct.
Why, like,
So, yeah, the rule of thumb is in your requirements, whatever nouns you can spot out, just take them as class first. Okay. As and when you go in depth into this thing, right? Suppose, as you said, it makes sense that why do we take them as separate classes? Why not take them as members inside board? So we will do that. Okay. It is easier to reduce, but it is difficult to expand. Suppose you had not taken these two guys, and during configuration of board, your interviewer asked, hey, I want to make snakes as runtime configurable. How would you do it? Then you will have to change board class, right? So that's why it is easier to reduce. So that's why I took it as separate. As a rule of thumb, I always take whatever nouns I can figure out in my requirements or assumptions, so I just take them as classes.
okay.
Okay, so any other nouns you guys can figure out? I don't think, right? We already got dice, correct? Start points doesn't, point is a noun. Do we take points? Let us take point also as a class. So instead of point, or let's put it point.
We can take position, right?
Yeah, I think we should take point position, correct? Position is also a noun, right? Yeah. Order is doesn't make sense. Time, one game is in progress. Yeah, many of two players are there. Yeah, I think we are done with our classes. Okay. Now coming back to enumerations. So what enumerations can we think about? One enumeration, is uh, very common, which you should think about is result of the game, and this is an enumeration.
A game status.
Yes. So this would be an enumeration. Correct. This would be an enumeration result, or say game status. Let us put it as game status. Correct. Any other enumeration do you guys think? One
Player
enumeration
state.
is possible values of
Done.
dice. It can be 0, 1, 2, 3, right? I actually took that in my interview, and I only had 1 hour to code. So during that 1 hour, I couldn't figure out how to connect that enumeration to dice. But let us take it. Okay, this would be dice moves. Okay, any other enumeration?
Player status.
Player status. That means he's active or inactive.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Enumeration. I hope the spelling is correct. Yeah, that's correct. Right? Okay, I think we are done with these. So we should always put our enumerations on top. So let me take this on top. Try to,
Hi Atul, I have one question.
yeah.
So why are we like making the dice as a enum?
Yeah, I'm not making dice as an enum. I'm making dice moves as enum. So because dice moves can only be 1 to 6. That's why. Does it make
Okay,
sense? I've just taken it. In my design also I took it, and then I figured out that it was becoming difficult to connect it, so I junked it at the end. So, but I'm sure we will be able to connect it. So I just wanted to keep it for now. Okay, we have game here, and we have board here. We have position over here, and we have snakes and ladders over here, right? We just have to form now associations or composition or aggregation. So obviously, game will be having everything inside it, right? So game will have a composition of board. So how do you show the composition? Does anyone remember where this particular arrow head would be?
Towards game, right?
Yes, correct. It's always towards the parent. It's a rule of thumb. Wherever you want to have this arrow, in case of anything, aggregation or something, it would be always towards the parent. Okay, board would be inside parent. Snakes and ladders would be inside board. Okay. Yeah, at this point, if somebody or the interviewer asks you that, why you have kept snakes and ladders outside, so you can just tell them that, with this, we just have configurability option in snakes and ladders. So we won't have to modify the entire board class if we want to modify the positions of, say, ladders, right? And plus, it makes UT easy. My response is that, having separate stuff makes unit testing really easy because if I change, say, ladders position, I reduce the number of ladders by one, so I just need to write or change the UT for ladders. I don't need to go and figure out, okay, what to do with my board class then. Right? So that's one. Position would be inside what? Position is the current player position, right? So it will be inside this guy. And what kind of relationship it would be having? It would be an association relationship. Or can it be a composition as well? It will be composition.
Atul, like how is position related to player as association?
It won't be association, it would be player position. It would be composition.
And Atul, like
Yeah.
since the interview is only for 1 hour,
Yeah.
do we really have time to unit test to do unit testing and
Actually, it would depend upon you how much you want to impress. Okay, you don't need to actually write the unit test. You just need to explain that what would be the corner case for a UT for player. So you can put it in comments as well somewhere. So in my case, I was just there was just a notepad, so I had to just write classes like this: public player, something like this. Then I wrote the class description. Then I in comments I wrote UT would be boundary cases for player. Okay, for dice moves, that API, one of the UTs could be if the moves are greater than 6, something like this. So always, if you have time, you just mention in comment that what you are going to write in Unity cases. In fact, I didn't even get to design all of this. Okay. So it was pretty much difficult. All the interviews looking for was, you straight away jump to this player class and just start writing. But it is difficult because you have to then guess what kind of classes would be there. With this approach, right, it becomes really easy. You just write the requirements, figure out the nouns and verbs, and design your classes accordingly. Yeah. Coming back to this, so we had dice. Dice would be independent. It won't be inside game. It would have an association with game. Correct. Player will be associated with the game. It won't be associated with the board player, right? What else? What else could be there? Yeah, I think we are okay. Does anyone
Uh,
else see any association or composition?
What about player and dice? Player will roll a dice, right? Or
Yes, correct. This guy will roll a dice.
and also Atul, player and player status.
Yes. So we have enumerations. This guy will have a player status. Correct.
And Atul, like, can you tell me the difference between association and composition?
Yes, of course. So associations is so first let me tell you about composition. Composition, when I say snake has a composition of board has a composition of snake, I'm trying to say that snakes cannot exist on their own. Okay, so there cannot be an object of snake outside board. Wherever an object of snake will be created, it would be inside board. If the board object is assigned to null, snake object would be destroyed. That's what I'm trying to convey. Okay, with association I'm just trying to convey that dice will have this particular enumeration as a status. So both dice and enumeration status can coexist, or dice can go to null, enumeration status will still be valid on its own. That's the difference. Was that clear?
Yes, Atul. Thank you.
Most of the times composition is done through dependency, no, not through dependency injection. It is done through constructor. So in your constructor, you create new snakes and new ladders in the constructor of board. That is the hardened. You won't have any hard kind of composition other than that. Okay. Anything else is loose kind of composition. Suppose you have a method in your board, say init board, and anyone can do a new board and then not do init. In your init you were doing snakes and ladders, so this is a lazy kind of composition. Okay, but if you put something in the constructor of board, these two classes are bound to get created. So that is like a hard, not hard, what is the term for that? One is lazy, one is
Ti-
what?
Like tight coupling.
Yeah, tight coupling. Coupling comes when you have something like in between. I'm looking for that word. We do it in singletons, right? Lazy and some kind of
eager in it.
yeah, eager. That kind of thing. So if you have to show strong composition, you do it in the constructor and just forget about it. Okay. Yeah, aggregation is composition is a stronger form of aggregation. Aggregation is a lighter form of composition. In aggregation, again, everything can exist separately, but and we show aggregation through dependency injection. So in the constructor of board, I will pass the objects of snakes and ladders. That way, even if board is destroyed, snakes and ladders would have been fine. Okay. Yeah. Now coming back to our classes. So let us quickly write our classes. Yeah, as you can see now, coming back to, do we want to have separate packages for these guys? Okay, we'll put board, game, and snakes and ladders in one package. We'll put players in another package. We'll put enums in another package, and we'll put dice along with game and board. Okay, so let me quickly create two packages. One will be game, and one will be, wait, dot. It would be what, players info. Okay, and then it would be So let me have two enums here, or three enums. What are our enums? Player status, right? What would be the next enum? Dice moves and game status.
I think you should choose enum. What is the thing?
We have enum.
Yeah, yeah. So if you click on Java class, you have a drop down,
Ah,
right?
right, right, right. Yeah, thanks for that. I'll just rename it. Okay. Yeah. And in our game classes, we'll quickly have, we already have our game class. We'll just have board, right? What else we should have? We should have snakes and ladders. Let us put it snakes, ladders, right? Player and player position. So now player position is a separate class. Why do we have it separate? So does it make sense to have player position as a separate class, or can we have it as a attribute of player? I think we can have an attribute, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it would be a class. Let us make it an inner class of this guy. Okay, let us remove it here. Right. So this guy will have a inner class that would be yeah. So now the moment you write player position inner class, you have to define if it will be public, static, or something like that. Okay. So for now, just put it as this thing. Okay. If you would have defined it as public, and then you would have figured out, okay, it doesn't need to be public, I can have getter APIs to expose it, then the interviewer could have got the impression that you're not clear with how the classes behave, inner classes behave. So my suggestion is you constrain it as much as possible. Exposing or increasing the constraint is very easy. Okay, if you have to decrease the exposure, then it becomes more challenging. Yeah, I mean, cross questioning will increase. Okay, and you don't want to go into that direction, right? Yeah. So let us go towards our snakes and ladders class first, because they were very easy to code. So now tell me this, by board, what do you suggest? We should take an n cross n matrix, or 10 cross 10 matrix. Will that make sense?
Yeah, 10 cross 10.
Correct. Okay, so let's go to our board. Where is our board? Yeah. Now, configuration of that board is an integer matrix of, right?
Uh,
I
uh,
did not, yeah,
Atul, I think it would be better to have a n cross n board, right? Because like you can extend the game, like not only to a 10 cross 10 board, but
correct.
uh,
Makes sense, yeah. So that means I'll have to overload the constructor as well, correct? So I'll take board size here, okay? With the board size variable, what we have done is we have tried to address this part of our requirement, what he was pointing out, how to make the board configurable. Did we take that? No, I don't think we took that. But it's a good thing to do. Okay, it doesn't hurt. It will be a very small piece of code, and we will do a lazy initialization of board configuration. Okay. Uh, in your code, whenever you have to initialize, I will suggest never do it here. Okay, always do it in constructors or in some methods. Okay, because that shows that you are concerned about memory usage. Okay.
So right
So
now we are initialize the like the variables as public. So do we need to make them private or like make them
right
keep
now it is
them as
default.
public?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah.
So it's better to make them private, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's better to make them private. In fact, I would suggest you start with private because, as I said, it is easier to make it public. No one will put that much cross questioning on you. But from public, if you try to go to private, there would be cross questioning, and it will show that you were not considerate when you were initializing your variables. Okay. In my interview, I took that a thumb rule that whenever I was inside my private, I mean inside my class variables, I made it private by default. Okay, so that kind of took away everything else. And I was one more tip. I was interviewing on Amazon's this what is their app, some name
China.
of the app, right? Yeah, so that was taking tabs as this thing. So whenever you hit enter, it would just put tab. So now it depends upon, in my organization they prefer spaces, in other organization they prefer tabs and all. So no one will question you on that, but you be mindful of that particular thing. Okay, if you write a for loop, so it should be indented. That's what I'm trying to say. So my notepad has a plugin, it directly indents everything, but that tool didn't add it, so I had to indent it manually every time. That was actually taking up a lot of time in my typing. Okay.
And also, Atul, like, was this question asked for SG1 or SG2 role?
So it was asked for, I would say L5 because I have 12 years experience. So probably they were taking me for SD3 then. Yeah. So yeah. So we configured our board, right? Now our board is configured with the initial sizes, but we have also to take care of snakes and ladders, correct? So let us put configurations in our snakes and ladders. What do you guys suggest? We have to take care of head and end positions. Any ideas?
I think, Atul, we can have a list or a map like a key value pair, like it has two values, start of the snake and also the tail of the snake, head and tail of the snake.
Okay. So if I
So
try to write a map, and put it integer cross integer, right? So what I'm trying to say is this, for this particular position, or I have to designate it. Then the first key is your head of the snake, right? So for this head of the snake, the tail is this, correct?
yes, Atul, yeah.
Correct. Okay, fine. Let's put it like that. Let's take a map for now.
Like, the reason why I think map is, I might be wrong, but the reason why I think map is better because whenever the player hits a snake, you can just check if the position is a key in the map.
Correct. Yeah, makes sense. Let's take a map for now. Okay. But if you have taken a map, then you need to comment it out also because I don't know what these things are there, right? So what comments we are going to write is key for the map is the start position of snake. Value on that key is the end position on board of the snake's tail. Okay, I took care of commenting my code properly because I took somewhere. I think I took it in board. I took something and it was not. It was only understandable to me. So my interviewer didn't understand what it was. So he asked me like what it has to be done. So quickly I had to put in the comments. Okay, so when he's cross questioning you, that is the first hint that you have to put some kind of comment. Okay, like board configuration, I should have ideally put some comment over here that it's a n cross n matrix. It would be assigned during construction initialization. Okay, but yeah, coming back to this guy, yeah. So we will give our snake mac a memory, right? And then we'll call init snakes. Okay, yeah, void init snake mac. Now the thing here is my board knows about the board size, correct? With this board size, the positions of snakes and ladders will also change. Does everyone agree?
Yes, Atul.
Yeah.
Correct. So that means we have to pass this particular board size onto our snakes and to our ladders, correct? So let us take that in our constructor and let us pass it over here, right? If you want, you can save it also here. Okay. If you want your code to be, more understandable, then you should do this. Okay. I usually do this when the variables names are same. Okay. And you should take care of the spacing as well. Okay. I use the short key in IntelliJ, but if you are typing on Notepad or that tool, you'll have to put spaces yourself. Okay. Yeah.
Atul,
So
I have one question. One of the requirements can also be like, suppose a user is on player is on 99 position
mhm.
and 5 or 6 appears. Then what should be the use case? Should we
Yeah.
discard that move or like?
Yeah. Correct. So that could have been a requirement. Yes. Or actually, that should have been a requirement. So it should be validate move. Actually, it should be validate move. So it should not be a requirement. It should be a use case. So what we can do over here is we can designate one validate move kind of use case, and this will be an exclusive use case because apart from move player on board, nobody else will use this. Okay, make sense? Okay, I'll take that as it makes sense. Yeah. So for now, we are just configuring 10 cross 10 board. So I'll not take into consideration the board size. I've just passed it. So for your interview purposes, this should be enough. Okay. We'll just quickly do some put over here. Let us put, we'll just put 3 snakes. So if he is on 98, then he would go back to 1. And that is one value, right? Let me put 2 more values. So if he is on 50, he would go back to 12. If he is on 40, he would go back to say 20, right? Yeah, I took this and same thing I can copy paste in ladders, correct? I'll just put it as a ladder map. This should be small. It should be ladder's tail, correct? Yeah, this is ladder map. Ladders, right? And this should be init ladders map, correct? Its name, yeah. And then we will put our ladder that if he's on 10, then he goes to 97. If he is on 20, he can go back to he can go to 50, not 50. Let's put it 45. Okay. If he is on the what 33, then he can go back to 63, right? Yeah. Now one thing, how you just saw, right? While configuring my ladder, I had to take into consideration that I know where my snakes are, correct? I should not put the foot of my ladder where a snake's mouth is there, correct? So that itself becomes a UT for my ladder and the snake class. That both should be mindful of each other. Okay. So you have to either you can put it over here itself in the comments that UT for this should validate against snakes. Go here, yeah. What happened? UT for ladders actual validate against snake's position.
I think Atul, we can also add a UT for making sure that the head is not beyond the board
Correct,
dimensions.
correct. UT should consider boundary cases. Make sense?
One question I have, like, how is board size helping over here
Yeah,
in
so
this
suppose your
model?
board size was 10 cross 10. Okay, so accordingly, the highest ladder that can go is 100, right? Suppose that board size
Mm.
was 100 cross 100. So they were like the largest number would be how much? 10,000. So in that case, the ladder can go at max to 10,000. You got it?
Yeah, but still we are manually setting it, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah. Currently, because as I said, I don't want to go into that configurable board
okay.
as of now. We just made provision for it that if you inject the board size, then it's up to you. You can just start a for loop, randomly generate values, modulo it with the board size. Do you want me to do it? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. We can.
Yeah, suppose I had to, manually configure it. I mean, randomly configure the ladders, right? So what I have to decide how many ladders are going to be there in this thing. Okay, so I'll just quickly try to do that. Private int num ladders. Okay. Usually, what I would do is I would take it through my this thing, my constructor. Okay. So I'll just put it in comments. Num ladders. Okay, so suppose it has been taken, so my ladder class knows how many ladders are there. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll just start a loop for int I equal to 1 to I is less than num ladders. Actually, if it is 2, then it should be equal to, right? Yeah, okay, let me indent it. Yeah, so now I need to fill up my ladders map. So what I'll do, dot put. So what I'll put, I need to put two indexes, correct? So I will put int head of ladder equal to math dot random, right? Modulo it with board size. Okay. If I just modulo it with board size, then even so, what is the board size is 100. This guy also gave me 100. Yeah, it should be fine. Why is it crying? Cast to int. Yeah, right. Yeah, and let me put tail ladder also.
So again, a small nitpicking. So
Yeah,
let's say like if the head ladder is comes out to be 100,
yeah.
uh, so so for some from a particular position, if the user reaches that, then they might directly reach the
Yes, correct. They
win.
will win. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, so in that case, do we want? So there might be some question like, do we want to make it restrict between, let's say, 90 to 100? We shouldn't have any head ladders.
Yes, correct. So that means in this case, you have to just twist around this header value right now. And just write
Okay.
in if case. Where is it? Where is the code? Just write this thing. If
Yeah.
head ladder equal to 100, then do what?
Then again, randomize. Maybe.
Randomize, or you can just put it as 99.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever comes to you. Okay,
Okay.
one more tip. If you want to use numbers like this, comparison numbers, you
Constants.
define it here, constants. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, these are called magic numbers. If you guys didn't know that, they are the worst practices in software, because suppose it was a very big project and I saw 100. How am I supposed to know what 100 means, right?
Yeah.
That is the logic. And it goes without saying that this is the small thing which your interview will be looking at. That if you use something over here, you have to define it over here. Should it be private, should it be public, that depends upon where it is needed. So in this case it would be private, because we need it only in our class. Correct. Yeah. So coming to this part, so I am assuming head and tail ladder would be unique numbers. So I have not taken into consideration when both will be same. But obviously, it's a very valid use case when both are same. What to do? So that's it's also very simple. If head ladder is equal to tail ladder. Yeah, we can just do tail is what? Tail is your ending position, right? So we can change head to -10. That's it. And 10 is your some kind of offset index. So you just assign here private static final uh, ladder offset equal to 10.
So final int, right?
Yeah, something like this. And then use it over here. That's it. Okay. This is how you will, assign, use the board size and then configure your head and tail ladder. Okay. Yes, accordingly you will configure your snakes, correct? So as of now, we have configured our snakes and ladders. Now all we need to do is in our board, we need to wait. We need to write one API over here. That should be a public API. Why we need that API? Because given a position, we need to find out if it belongs to the head of snake, correct? If there is a snake's head on that, right? So let me write public boolean is snake present, correct? And we'll take a position over there, right? Yeah, correct. So return val. Let me put boolean val equal to false. Okay, we'll by default consider there is no snake, and now we go and figure out if there is a snake on that. How to figure out? Very simple. In our snake map, we just need to iterate over the values and figure out if values are there or not. Okay. So how do we do that? We need to write a for loop. Does anyone remember?
Atul, Atul, I don't think we need to have a for loop since we're using a map. We can just check if the position is a key, is an entry in the map.
Okay. So what? Is there any API like that?
There's a contains key method.
Yeah, correct. So let us return this itself.
And also, we might just not need to return the boolean. Probably we might need to return the end of the snake,
End of
right?
the
And
snake, correct. Yeah.
well,
Okay, then we don't need to do this. We need to
we
do
just
something
need like,
else.
yeah, return snake map dot get off position.
Okay, else return -1. Okay, then you need to annotate this API with comments. What is -1? Okay, just for this API I'm doing, for writing description of APIs, we need to take into account what it takes, what it returns, what it takes, and what it's supposed to return. Okay, so you usually start with what are the parameters. So I annotate with this guy. First, the description. Description is takes position and returns the tail of snake if the snake was present on that position, correct? So add parameter. The parameter would be position, right? Returns position of snake's tail -1 if no snake is present on that position. Okay, if you want to throw in exceptions, you need to do at throws exceptions or something like that. Okay, something like that. Just for your information, if you want to see uh, um, uh, how to write, or you want to see how it is written, you can just visit Android Xref and just check out this class audio manager.java. That's it. Every method is very well inundated in this guy. Every kind of exception you'll be able to see. If it is throwing, say, illegal state exception, then it returns. I mean, they show it over here at throws illegal state exception. Okay. Yeah. So we have done with this. This will be a similar thing in ladders. Correct. I'm not copying up the comments. Okay. Where is my ladder map? Right. Instead of -1, you have to define a constant over here. Let me do it. Private static final int no snake equal to -1. Hey, what happened? Oh, yeah. Okay. Same thing with ladders. Okay. Yeah, you can understand, right? Change to constant. Okay, so we have a ladder position, we have a snake position, correct? Now we have to configure our board. So I need to create snakes and ladders over here. So they will be my private variables. I can go back to my association diagram and then figure out snakes and ladders where indeed to be created inside board. So I'll be here private snake. Why are you crying? Oh, snakes. Right, let me put a ladder. Why is he crying? Identifier expected. Right, let me put over here snakes equal to new snakes. What is needed? Board size, right? Board size. Ladders equal to new ladders board size. Correct. Yeah. What else? So I've configured the snakes and ladders, right? What else is there? Going back to my class diagram, I need to configure now the game class. Where is my game class? This is my game class, right? So what could be there in a game class? Of course, there will be a board that will be private. Okay. Now, if you want to make it n number of games in play, then this has to be a board list. Everyone agrees?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not taking a board list as of now. I'm just taking one variable. I'm just putting a comment. Change to list of boards to make it playable by n games at a time. Okay. Yeah. In my game constructor, I don't need to take anything. Okay. Maybe board size I can take, but for the sake of simplicity, I'll not take it now. Okay, this guy is expecting something. Let me give it 10, not 10. Ah, 10, 10 cross 10. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Okay, there is a problem. I took the board size as 10, right? And I created this matrix. And the new snake size also I put it as 10, correct? It has to be 10 square whenever, where was that loop which we wrote? I removed the loop. You understood, right? If I, it will again modulate with 10. We need to modulate with the square of that guy. Okay. Yeah. So we just created our board. What else is supposed to be in our board? it has to know about player, of course. Okay, so we'll go to our player class. Where is my player class? Yeah. So this guy will have private, say, string player ID, right? Whenever you create a player, you give it its player ID. Okay, so string ID, right? Player ID equals to ID, correct? Then you need to expose a method which calls for get player ID, public get player ID, return player ID, correct? Yeah, you can also use what getters. Oh, what does it mean? Library.
It needs a Lombok library.
Yeah, it needs library. So I don't have this. Otherwise, you would have used it. I don't usually prefer it because I like my code to be readable. But just for your info. Anyways, on Notepad, you won't get a chance to use. So, yeah. So we'll expose the player ID, right? We need to also expose player position from player. Okay. So we need to write one more API. That means I need to have a player position as well. Correct. When will the player position become active? That means I need to have a public API which will set the player position. So now there is a problem here. If I give a setter API which is a void API, right? And it takes player position as a parameter. That means this guy will have to be made public, but I don't want it to make public, correct? So that means I just should take position here and then convert it into a player position on the board. Okay. So that time my player position should have what? It should have, it can have just the integer parameter, right? Private int cell number. That's it. In my constructor, I'll just take int num, and then I will do a cell number equal to num, correct? Now, since I made that guy as private, I need to have one getter API. So public int get pose return cell, right? Now, if I have got the position from external entity to set it, where is my set? Uh, to set it, then what do I do with this position? I just need to create, where is it? Player position equals to new player position. That's it. And here I will just return my player position, right? Does this make sense?
Yes.
Call player the set position method on the player position object.
Yes. Okay. So one thing to note here is every time a new position is set, we will be creating a new instance of player position. So one cross question can here be, how do we optimize it? Okay. Because whenever I see new, right, and I see it in some set methods, it just it starts smelling to me. So that's why I put myself this cross question. Okay, can be optimized.
But Atul, even if we create a new object every time,
Yeah,
the garbage collect like no reference will be pointing to the old object, right? Garbage collector is anyway going to free the memory.
correct. So just to counter that, or my argument against that would be, if I would have just taken position like this, I just want to maintain the integer, then it would have served the purpose, right? Because this guy, it only has one integer inside it. right? So my way of optimization would be to get rid of this class completely and just use the position ints as this thing. Correct. That
Yeah,
would be the
makes
way to
sense.
optimize this. Yeah, because you are correct that every time garbage collector will be able to correct it, but why to enforce garbage collector to even do that job? Even as it is, whenever you do a new, it's a heavy operation. We have to assume it's a heavy operation. Okay. So just I wrote can we optimize? Okay. Now where were we? So we were configuring our game class. So game has to know about the number of players, correct? So that means there has to be a list over here. Let us take an array list of players, right? Array import, yeah. Okay, let me call it player list. Okay, I'll lazily initialize it. Okay, because I don't know how many players are there going to be in the game, but uh, I need to know how many players are going to be there in the game, right? So int num players. Okay, let me also save this guy. Number of active players. Now, if I write active, that means I am considering case the player can decide to not play the game forward. I mean, going forward. In that case, he will go into some inactive player list or something. I'm not taking that into consideration. I'm just thinking out loud. Okay. So let us do this guy is equal to num player. Okay. And then let us do player list equals to new of array list. How many we want? Number of active players. Okay, so we have the player list in the game. What else do we want to have? Game I think is fine. Let's go to our dice class now. So one more thing, player will be was doing something, right? He was doing bunch of things. He was making a dice move. So let us code that method as well in player. Where is player? Here is player, right? So let us do so that particular dice method, it has to return an integer. That's correct, right? Public, actually, does it have
We
to
have a
return anything? Do you guys think it has to return something? No, right? It can be void. Does it make sense to make it void, or do we want to return it something?
Yeah, it can be void as well.
Correct. So let us make it void as of now. Public void uh, make move. Correct. So what we need to do is generate random number in range to 6. Correct.
So Atul, inside this only a valid move also will be checked, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Int move is equal to math dot random and then modulo it with 6, right? Plus 1, because if the random number is 36, then modulo with 6 will yield 0, and it would 0 is not a valid value, so I'm just adding plus 1. Okay, what, yeah, convert it into int. Right, now we need to validate. Okay, now after validation, do we check for snakes, or do we check before for snakes and ladders? We should validate it first, right? Has it reached boundary conditions or not? Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. So how what do we validate it against? Okay. So what would be our boundary conditions? I mean, obviously one would be boundary conditions. Correct. It should not go beyond board size. Should
And
not
it should not
go
move back.
board. Yeah. So moving back is not even permitted because my it will be always a positive integer. So it will go from current position to forward or to the snake's position. Then it will move back. Okay. So what I think is this, the only thing which we need to worry about is board size. It should not go actually beyond board size. Correct?
So one more thing. So do we need to save the current context of the player? So let's say he's at uh, cell number 20 and then play the move. So we need
Yes.
to add to the current position, right?
Yes. So we will use our set player position method for that. Okay.
Okay.
That means it cannot be public because I will be internally manipulating it.
Yeah.
Right? So let us make it private. Okay. Then we'll put a call final position. Okay. Now, as you can see, it has to validate against the board size, right? But we haven't taken board size inside the player. Correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That means we need to twist its constructor. And at this dot board size equal to board size. Yeah. And then where was my snakes? No, where was my board? Where was I creating player? Game.
Yeah.
Actually, I was not creating. I haven't yet created players. So wherever I'll create players, I'll add it like this. Correct. So let me have a method over here. Public void start game. Okay. So I need to create players over here. Right. I'm using a static creation as of now. So I'm just doing player p1 equal to new player. Let's give p1 as the id and board size as whatever is the board size, 10. Okay, so that means player p2 can also be created. We'll just play with two players as of now because actually we are past time. Okay, just give me 10 more minutes, guys. I just wanted to implement this particular method on a player. Okay, so that we can use a priority queue to figure out this particular thing. Okay, so we'll just concentrate on player class as of now. So you understood, right? Start game has to be a infinite while loop. Why? Because in theory, a game of snakes ladder can go to infinity. I mean, you can just keep on bouncing around until you reach 100, right? That means it has to be a while loop of infinite time period. Okay, when it can break when uh, someone reaches 100, or result is this. Our result player game status is this thing finished, right? Something like that you can do. Okay, probably I'll share this code once it's done, but for now we'll just bounce to our player class. Okay, so we were at this guy, right? We'll have to moderate against this thing. So that means if uh, actually we need to return the status. That means we need to have, yeah, you understood why we need to return the status. What if the boundary conditions fail? That means we need to actually not return.
But
We'll still have it
uh,
voiced. We will regenerate move.
Atul, like apart from the boundary conditions, we also have to check if the cell is on the snake or ladder, right?
Yes,
But the
yes,
player class has no access to snake and ladder. The board
yes,
class has access to, no, sorry, the
correct,
game class has access to snake and ladder.
correct. Yeah, we'll come to that. Okay. First, let us make the mistake and then revert back to the original solution. Okay. Yeah. So how do we validate if board size or move actually player position dot get pause plus move. He'll move from current position, right? Is greater than board size. Then regenerate this thing, or say limit move to I'll just use a hard rule here. Move equal to move -1 or -2 rather. Okay. Yeah. Now coming to if it was greater than board size, then I reduced it by -2. Okay. So I'm assuming that it will be just 2 times greater than this. Okay. Yeah. This is a junk piece of rule. Okay. We need to put more brain to it. I think it should be 6. Okay. That's just my guess. Yeah, but coming to your this question, now we have to validate against snake, right? Now his question is valid. We haven't injected dependency of either snakes or actually we don't have to touch snakes and ladders. We have to touch board. So we haven't injected player with board. Okay, we injected it with board size. So the better choice would have been to inject it with board. Okay, so let me go back to my game. Instead of doing this, I'll just inject it with board. Because board has both information. It has player board size as well. It has everything else as well. Array board here. Correct. It, correct. Yeah.
Atul, wouldn't board be static because board is common to all the players in a game, right?
Board is common to all the players in the game. That is correct. I wanted to use a singleton design pattern over here just to showcase the design pattern, but we are running out of time. So if you would have used singleton, right, board would have been automatically static. Okay. Okay, I would have come to that, but you since brought it up, and we don't have time also, so probably we won't be able to come to this.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Hello. Okay, fine. Yeah, I'll just quickly, move to this. I think it should be get board size, but we had made it private, so let me put one method over here. Public int get board size. Good one. 10 board size. Yeah. So we will put it over here. Board size. Right. Now you can check for snake and ladder. Okay. So you already have access for snakes and ladders here, right? So you just do public snake get snakes, then you return snakes. Okay. Same thing you can do for ladders also. I'll just write it for snakes. Where is it? Check for snake and ladders. So we have our move and we want to this thing. So our board is there. Dot get snakes is there, right? It will give me snakes. Then we have get snake end position. Correct. So for the current position, that is this. Okay. If this position is equal to -1. Okay, that means there was no snake at this position. Then this move is valid. Move is valid. Okay. Else there was a snake. Else there is a snake. Correct. So that means our position would become what? It would become board dot get snake position. This thing. Okay, and then we just directly return this position, or we don't return this position. Okay. Similarly, you will write it for a ladder as well. You will have to expose one methods and all. Okay. Yeah, and then you finally call set player position. So you can just do a set player position here. Set player position with player position. That's it. This guy is taking an integer. Yeah, don't take integer. Take this. Right. Player position. Wait, what did I do? Oh, sorry, it was correct. So मेरा player position क्या है? It's a type of player position. Okay, I need to just pass this thing. Dwell. Yeah, no, it's fine. Now, up till here is fine, right? We'll just quickly try to dive into this thing. Okay. So right now, what we have to do, we have to deploy a kind of API, an API, which will track how many sixes the player had thrown and how many times has been bitten by snakes. Okay. So that means I have to, for every player, I at least have to maintain two variables, right? One is private int number of sixes thrown, correct? And another would be number of uh, times bitten, correct? Of course, this would get populated whenever he encounters a snake. So if the board has a snake, then I'll just do plus plus, correct? And the sixes would be when his move has equal to 6, correct? So I'll just put a condition over here. If move is equal to 6, then do what? You do a plus plus of this guy, right? So these two things are there. Because I wrote two variables, let me just quickly write two APIs also. I'll make it private for now because I don't want it to expose it to outside world. Private int get, yeah, number of sixes thrown. Let me return number of sixes thrown. Yeah, correct. Okay, private another time. Yeah, int, yeah, get number of times button, right? Return number of times bitten. Yeah, correct. Okay, everything is fine now. Now I have maintained the count of number of sixes thrown and number of times bitten, correct? I need to write an API which would give me public, what was the API, which will let the caller know which player has thrown maximum number of sixes, right? So where that API should go?
I think it should be in the game class.
Okay, let us try to put it in game class. Okay, so it would be public, it should be player, right? And get amazing player. Okay, yeah, let us return null for now. Okay, yeah, so we have put it in here, right? So how do we deploy such kind of API? Okay, so if you know about priority queue, then you know that priority queue works as a simple queue, but with a twist. In a priority queue, you can give a comparator which will help in comparison. Okay, so for example, if they were player 1 and player 2 in that queue, player 1 came in first and player 2 came in second, and now you want to uh, uh, if you do a peak of this particular queue, then if player 2 was our amazing player, that means he had the max sixes and minimal bytes. Okay, so he will be picked out. Okay, how do we do
So
that?
it
I
will
will
act
just,
as a max heap.
yeah, max heap, right, correct. So we implement a max heap using our priority queue. We just give a comparator from our side. In this comparator, we will take care of implementing the comparison logic. Okay, so let us try to put it over here.
In Java, there is only one way of implementing max heap or minip, right? Of this priority queue.
Yeah, so what I would have done is I would have implemented my own heap and then my own priority queue and heap and then gone away from there. Okay, because if you use standard APIs, that doesn't sit well with our interviewers.
And also, Atul, I think there is a catch as well. Like, what if there are multiple players with same number of sixes and also with same number of hits? What would you do in that case?
Yes, correct. So that in that case, priority queue does arbitrary. So it's whatever comes in first, you can return that. It's up to your implementation of algorithm. Okay, so
Makes
what I
sense.
would
Yeah.
have done is I would have made utility package over here, implemented the entire heap and priority queue over there, and then use that within my code. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll implement that and then I'll share the code in our Telegram group. so that you guys can check that out. And if you have any recommendation over that code, you can send it over the same too. Make sense?
Yes, Atul.
Yeah. One more thing. If in a 1 hour interview, obviously that is not possible. So what you should say is, I'll implement my own utility class and implement my own queue and heap over there. Okay, that will show that you know about in depth about how to implement a heap and how to implement a priority queue. So that itself is a very good impression over the interviewer. Okay, he will never ask you to code it completely. But if it would have been a machine coding round offline, then you would have to do it. Okay. That is one point from my side. Any other questions, guys? Actually, we ran out of a lot of time.
Atul, like this problem has been asked in machine coding interviews as well.
Not to me. It was the first time I gave Amazon, so they just asked me, and they actually asked me to implement only one method, which was this guy. Where is our player guy? Yeah, this one. Make the move and validate against all cases, and then set the player position. So he was just looking for this particular, and yes, he was also asking for these APIs, status of the game, status of individual players, and all. So I had to implement something in here also. So he was not bothered about what kind of variables and this I'm taking, but it doesn't mean he was not checking that out. So if you write something, you should at least put comments over there.
Atul, one question is like in the make move function, I'm still confused about this part. Like in the random can give me like a previous range, right?
Yeah,
Like
okay.
suppose,
Consider like this. Suppose he was on player position 0. Okay. So move is supposed to give you numbers from 1 to 6. So the next move would be 0 plus that particular positive number. So it would never be the same number or backward number. It would always be the forward number. Make sense?
okay.
Okay, let me take an example. Suppose the current position is 15. He is on 15. Okay. Max dot random at max or minimum what it can give you. Minimum it can give you 1. So his next position would be 16, right? Or it can give you 6. So his next position could be 21. It would never be 14. Okay. 14 when it could be when he encounters a snake and there was a snake at that position. Then it could go to 14. Okay. But his next position would be get to current position plus the move guy.
Okay, we are doing it in the if, right? Okay, okay, got
Yes,
it.
yes. We are adding it to the if. Yeah.
Yes, yes, okay.
Okay. So yeah, action item on me is to implement this particular API and then share it with you guys. Uh, any other questions? Anyone?
Atul, one more question.
Yeah.
So here, like since it is a 2 hour session, you are able to implement most of the uh, methods and functionality, right?
Yeah.
But in interview where it is time constrained, like 45 minutes to 1 hour,
Yes.
like does the interviewer really care about indentation or commenting? Like you're talking about them, right?
Yes. So in Amazon, I do know that they do care about indentation or whatever you write it perfectly. I mean, they expect production level code from us. Okay. So even null pointer check should have been done. We never did null pointer checks, by the way, in our code anywhere, wherever we are messing around with objects. So you will have to write a production level code. That's what I would say. Okay.
Okay, Atul.
One more thing, if like in my case, he was just looking for a particular methods and a list of methods, right? But in order to arrive at those methods, I should know what all classes should be there. That means at minimum, I had to write down the requirements and assumptions to figure out, okay, what are the nouns, how many classes would there be? Otherwise, it's a guesswork that, I make a game class, I make player class inside the game class, and then I'm screwed. So do write the requirements, do write the assumptions. That is the first step you should take. It doesn't matter what the interviewer is looking for. Okay, because that will give you a very clear picture of how many classes there could be. Okay, that is one tip from my side. You don't need to actually make use case diagram, but it's better because it will make your life easier. You will actually be able to see how many APIs should be there at minimum.
And also, Atul, uh, like especially in Amazon Chime, right?
Yeah.
Like, will they provide an editor so that you can design those UML diagrams and
Yes,
the
their InVision
relationship?
tool is there. You can download it also. It has you can use it as trial also. that tool will is same as Gliffy. Okay, actually it's more intuitive. Let me. I deleted it. Okay, I had that InVision tool, so you can practice on the InVision tool. It's pretty easy to use. These associations and all you will have to manually draw them. It doesn't have in Gliffy you have direct arrows which say association and all. So in that case you will have to dot it or something like that.
And Atul, like, are we going to have similar sessions like in the future?
Yeah, I was planning to have a HLD session sometime this week before Friday. And I do plan to have data structures and Java sessions from Monday onwards, 10:30 India time. Actually, I've planned that already. So if you guys are interested, I'll share that link in our LLD group. I didn't share it because it was supposed to be for only for LLD. That is one point.
Atul, also could you please ping that, I mean, send that link, Amazon Envision. It's taking me to Amazon Business Envision
No, no,
something.
InVision is a open, I mean, it's a tool by itself. I'll share it in our group.
Sure.
Or let me, yeah, it is here, InVisionApp.com. Where is our meeting? Yeah.
Okay.
I actually asked him that if I can use in Gliffy, so he was okay with me using Gliffy. But what I figured out was I ended up doing it on InVision only because I think they record whatever you have drawn and what you have written. So based on that, they might do something. That was my assumption. So I jumped Gliffy and then I jumped to InVision. So it's better if you can do a trial on InVision. It has some short tricks and all that are pretty handy.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else, guys?
No, it was very helpful. Thank you.